Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast. Today I'm here with Jon Taylor. Jon is the author of Maximize Your Multiple, the business owner's guide to institutional money deal, a book that helps entrepreneurs build and sell their companies for maximum value. Jon has over 20 years of mergers and acquisitions, strategic advisory, and business valuation experience, and has successfully advised clients across the broad range of industries, including government services, aerospace and defense, business services, technology, consumer and industrial products, metals and mining. He has closed over $2 billion in aggregate transaction value in his career. You know, my first question is going to be the origin story, man. You were born, now you're on my show, kind of fill in the gap at how you got here today.
Sure. So I got out of school. I went to the Wharton School and graduated in the late 90s as an undergrad, and which was an interesting time. You had referenced Excite, right? So that was right during the whole .com craze, 99, 2000. And, my first job out of school, I studied finance and was just interested in Wall Street. I remember watching Wall Street as a kid and just thought, that was a really interesting movie. I think Oliver Stone didn't meant to be like a movie, but I think a lot of people in my generation just got turned on to Wall Street, right? So I'd read Barbarians in the Gate in college and some other deal books like that, and so started off doing middle market investment banking. A lot working with some tech companies early on, and enjoyed it in a lot of ways. But at the same time, there's all these kind of a lot of people were heading into .coms, and I did spend, I did try kind of the internet thing out for a little while, but came back to banking and, had worked with a couple different firms over my career, founded my own practice 7 or 8 years ago. And, haven't really looked back since. Just been doing middle market mergers and acquisitions, typically companies, 10 to 20 million plus in sales. And then we have a very active business valuation practice as well.
Walk through the conversation that happens for valuation and like with the seller as far as like, do you have to set some expectations or what's the conversation look like?
Yeah, that's an important part of the process whenever we evaluate a business for a sale. I mean, we get the financial statements, we go through a questionnaire, we get information on the customer base, the market they're in, and then we do our own evaluation of the business of what we think it's worth, what we think bids might come in if we were to market the company actively. And then we present that to the potential seller and say, hey, look, we think the value is going to be in this range, right? So, oftentimes it's a multiple of EBITDA, maybe a multiple of sales. And, and obviously there's could be significant variance between like a high end range versus a low end range. And everyone likes to be optimistic and say, hey, it's possible that we could get you, 20 times EBITDA for your business, or 20 times sales or something like that. And that's what everyone wants to hear. But we want to try to give them a realistic picture of where, 80 to 90% of bids are going to come in, because it doesn't do anyone, much good if we're just blowing smoke and making them feel like, hey, your business is, more valuable than the market might perceive it to be. I mean, it's an honest conversation and just say, hey, this is where we think most people are going to bid. And realistically, these are what your options are going to look like. And we say with the caveat, like, hey, we'd love to get you more and we'll try to get you more.
Do you guys do any type of strategic advisory? Like, well, we'll help you acquire something to help you get there, or you stay inside of the, sell side advising?
Sure. Yeah, no, we definitely tell people, like, look, if there's a certain number you're targeting, you need to grow the business for another year or 2 or 3 years, or whatever the plan is. And maybe the best way to do that is to look at an acquisition, or maybe there's ways to increase the profitability that they haven't looked at, right, or haven't considered. Or it's interesting because you meet business owners all the time, and they're not, a lot of them aren't really optimizing everything they're doing, right. They maybe they're wasting money on things that aren't a good investment, or they need to really focus on growing the top line, maybe investing in the right kinds of people that can help them get there. So we do give that sort of advice as well.
And I kind of suspect you're uniquely set up to talk about it because you are surrounded by tech and innovation. So you've with your defense contracting stuff that you had in your bio and stuff, you've got to come across this. So Is it swag, right? The scientific wild ass guess, or is there a method to valuing intellectual property as an asset of a company?
Sure. So we have done valuations specifically for a company's intellectual property, and a lot of times that's can almost be like a theoretical exercise where you look at royalty payment on what it be type of intellectual property, right? Software code, which maybe they're not monetizing, but it could provide cost savings, right? Maybe they need to hire, they don't need as many people, so it provides a cost savings to the company by automating certain processes, right? So those are, so even if the software or the intellectual property is sold, but does it provide some other type of benefit or advantage to the business in terms of cost or how the company's marketed?
Do you work with any type of like transition specialist or anything that helps the owner figure out what they're going to do next, so they don't pull that knee jerk reaction towards the end of the transaction?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's funny because I talk to business owners every day. I mean, as you know, as you can imagine, and I go to trade shows sometimes, and I meet business owners, and I always kind of chuckle sometimes because I'll meet some of these guys that are, well past retirement age, well into their 60s, 70s, even 80s in some cases, and I say, hey, would you consider, are you considering a potential sale of the company? Is that something you'd like to do or would consider? And a lot of them are just like, no, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm not looking to do that. I enjoy what I'm doing. And you think like, hey, like this guy's ripe retirement age, but it's like a lot, the way a lot of these entrepreneurs are wired, they're not even thinking about it, right? They just want to keep doing what they're doing, and this is their purpose.
We're at the 40 something minute mark. What should I ask? Right? What's a question like, man, we should probably talk about this topic. Is there anything on your mind that like you're hoping I get around to?
No, it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we touched on this before, but I think that the big opportunity with business owners is, probably, I think it's in my book. I kind of go through this, but something like, fewer than 95% of 95% of businesses are not saleable, right? So we're in businesses that like private equity or strategic buyer might buy, really only 2 to 3% of businesses even qualify um, for that kind of a buyer, right? Because they're not a big enough company. Their sales and profits just aren't high enough, and so I think there's a big opportunity for business owners to think about how they can grow and expand their business, right? Overcoming things like customer concentration, risk factors. I think we had touched on that a little bit before, but those are things. I mean, maybe I'll put a plug in for my book. I mean, that's pretty much what I work, because I saw there's this huge kind of bottom of the pyramid opportunity for business owners, where if they're focused, if they commit resources, that they can significantly grow their business beyond where they are, and maybe look at doing an institutional type deal down the road where they can sell for a much higher multiple rather than kind of the 1 to 3x multiple range you mentioned, right? Because that's where a lot of small business owners end up, because they haven't put the resources into making it a more sizable, profitable venture.